And well done to you all who achieved today and been invested today and done all your honors and your curriculum requirements. Excellent. I'm really, it boggles the mind and it overwhelms the heart, to see that people are you guys are really doing well in terms of achieving and still keeping Pathfinders going. Let me also just acknowledge our area coordinators in area 1 and 2 up to end of 2020. Pam has been the only area coordinator there, but we're so glad that we've co-opted Jonas into the area 1 and 2 team. Now, Jonas is an official, fully bred, full-time area coordinator. I know some people said he's assistant to Pam. Actually, they're not assistant, they are assisting each other, and they are both fully coordinators in area 1 and 2. Really valuable people, and we just want to acknowledge them and thank you for their hard work there and keeping Pathfinders going there into that area. Let me just take a time to quickly just before I go there, I need to thank most important people. Most important people are our parents. I think, Claudette, you will know that you will agree with me that a good Pathfinder club is dependent and values its parents, right? And without them, a Pathfinder club becomes really redundant. So my hat, if I had a hat, it goes to you parents. Thank you for your commitment. And of course, the leaders and the pastors within that church that values Pathfinders and keeps support and keep supporting Pathfinders. And I mean, putting a day like this together only for Pathfinders is valuable. So it's after 1 and we need to keep going. Let me just link this to you. Our closest event coming up, well, apart from the BUC PBE and ABE session, we've got a valuable program. Normally we have Youth Week of Prayer. This time, Global Youth Day, first of all, is coming up on the 20th of March, and we want to encourage you guys to do something for Global Youth Day. Now, it's not more Global Youth Day just for youth, senior youth. It is World Global Youth Day, and especially Pathfinders in Action Day. General Conference wants to push this very much, saying that Pathfinders become active on that day. Now you may ask, what do I do? And when all the stuff are closed, I can't reach people, I can't talk to people. There's valuable things that you can do. And one of the things, and I'm just giving you a heads up a little bit, one of the things that I'm going to do, because Red Nose Day is on the 19th of March, but what I'm going to do is I am going to, for Global Youth Day, I am going to fast for 36 hours. Now, back in World Vision is actually one in doing that, 36 hours, right? And all the money that I was going to eat for that 36 hours is going to be given for somebody else. And so I will be announcing it very soon, next week. And I'd like lots of people to join me. I'm going to set up a Zoom meeting. We're going to be together from 8 o'clock Friday evening until 8 o'clock Sunday morning. Then we'll have a nice breakfast, but you will see all of that. So think about that. That's what I'm going to do. And I'd like many people to join me and see how much we can raise for 36-hour famine. Call it a 36-hour famine. 36 hours, you're not going to eat. 36 hours, we're just going to maybe drink some juice and stuff. But we'll see. We'll let you know what is happening there. Second thing that I want to do is, because Global Youth Day happens in the week of prayer, we don't want just the normal week of prayer. We want the week of prayer for the senior youth. We want a week of prayer for the Pathfinders. That is, you will see there. We collaborated with all the entities in the British Union, all together, all the directors, and we said, look, we want to do something. And so every night we're going to present a program. So we thought Adventurous also misses out on week of prayer. So we got a special Adventurous week of story time and prayer. We call it story time and prayer because we've got brilliant people like Brenda Walsh and Patricia Douglas, the NEC director, and people who's been involved in storytelling. They're going to share just 10 minutes every night, 6 o'clock, and come together and give you just a thought, for that week. So adventurers, you are also special in that special week. So think about that. I've already shared it with the leaders in an email yesterday. So consider that and prepare for that and plan for that all on Facebook and YouTube. And so we're looking forward to that. Okay, so but that's my advertisement for you today. Thank you for supporting South England Conference Pathfinders so well. And without you guys, without clubs, the SC Pathfinder department would not even exist. And so you're talking about mirrors today, right? Sorry, not light today. And I'm glad some people talked about lighthouses and some people talked about candles. Thank you for that story, Auntie Pam. A valuable story I've heard, quite a few times. Other people told it, and it's still valuable in terms of, that we must never lose our function as lighthouses. So, but light, and I'm going to focus on light a little bit. Anybody wonder how a mirror works? How a mirror actually works? How does it scientifically reflect the image in front of it directly back to the image, right? So in other words, how do I see my image in a mirror? How does it actually work? And those of you who are scientists, so if I opened up the Zoom room, you would give some opinions about that. But it has to do with light. And you know what? Light is actually made up of all the colors in the universe. Actually, if you look at a beam of light, it's actually made up of all the colors in the universe. And so when light shines on an image or whatever it shines on, that image determines what color it reflects back depending on the color that it's painted on. So in other words, when you see red, it's because the t-shirt, whatever, is painted red, and therefore the light shines on that and it only reflects one of the colors back. I don't know how it works, but that's how they say all the light goes onto that red t-shirt, but only the red reflects back. White paper, for example, reflects all the colors back at you. Did you know that? It reflects all the colors back at you. But because the white paper isn't smooth, and if you look at the white paper, you'll know it's not really, really smooth. And so what happens is the light bounces onto that piece of white paper. And because it's not smooth, it bounces colors in all their directions. That's why you don't see the color. That's why you just see white. Now, that's even something strange, but that's what the scientists say what actually happens. Now, if you had to smooth that paper and really, really make it shiny, then you would see a different image and you'll actually see the image in front of you, because with a mirror, for example, because that mirror is smooth, it reflects all the colors back at you. That's why whatever you see in the mirror is exactly the image, what is being reflected from, whatever stands in front or whatever is put in front of that mirror, it gets reflected back. And so how does the light work? The light works, if you look at the picture there that I've shown you, the light shines from the top, right? The light shines onto the image, which is me, and then it reflects into, it reflects into the mirror, and then the mirror reflects it into my eyes. Okay, now that's a strange thing how it works, but that's how it is. The light shines on top, onto me, into the mirror, back into my eyes. So what I see is actually the image that is being reflected, is being reflected at me. Now, it needs light. Now, how many of you have ever, if you try and do it, just make a room completely dark, not even street light, not even the light from another room, not even your light from a phone, and you try and look through in a mirror, you won't see any image because there's no light shining on it. There is no light reflecting on that. Now, what am I trying to say this afternoon? After 1 o'clock, for you guys to think. Now, it's after 1 o'clock, and they say after 1 o'clock comes the graveyard shift. You mustn't teach maths all these heavy things after because people just can't grasp it because their brains are just switching off. But how you just remember that it has to do with light, and light reflects that image. How does it work? When it comes to mirrors, because the mirror reflects that image back into my eyes, right? Now, when I see that image back there, when I look at that image, when I see that image of myself reflected on me, I can have two choices. There's the thing, a mirror. I can either say, I don't like the image, or I can say, wow, that's the greatest image in the world. You know, how some guys maybe, or some girls, you know, they may look at themselves in the mirror, get that image reflected, and they may say, man, I'm God's gift to the world. You know, there's no one that looks as beautiful as me. There's no one that looks as cool as me. There's no one that looks as gorgeous as me, right? You can look in a mirror and you say, man, guys can say, I'm God's gift to women. You know? Or there's some people who look at that image and they say, I really don't like what I'm looking at. Maybe there's the ears are too big. Maybe the nose are too big. Maybe the lips are too skew. Maybe the hair is not as straight as everybody else. Maybe the bulges are too big. Maybe my arm is too crooked. Maybe, and I do not like that image, what they see. And so this is how the mirror, in terms of, you know, it is the opinion of the person that's looking through that mirror will determine whether they accept it or not. Let me put it this, very simple, okay? When you look at that mirror, you look at that image, you can either say, I like it or I don't. But it depends on you. Because if somebody else comes next to you and looks at that image, they also make a decision. They say, I can either like or I don't like. And usually it's the point, usually if you as a person don't like that image, the next person actually like it. So what am I saying? What am I saying? In terms of that God reflects, God is that light, right? And he reflects that image into that mirror and back into my eyes. Now, what I would like to see depends on how I feel about myself. Not how it really is, but how I feel about myself. I may look at myself and look really ugly, or look really bad, or look really horrible. But what is reflected is not the actual image, what I want to see. Because remember how this mirror works. The mirror reflects every color and everything that you see. In other words, God says, when he says he made us a little lower than the angels, and he crowned us with glory and honor. So what God shines on and what God reflects is the most perfect person that he could have created. Remember, God says, I created every human being in my image. Imagine that. Imagine that. It is the image of God that is reflected in that mirror. Now, I may not see the best in myself. I may not see the greatest in myself. I may see horrible. I may see bad. But listen, that is not what God reflects into that mirror. And maybe the text of Ephesians 5 verse 1 says this: be imitators of God. In other words, what God is saying to you, listen, reflect or see in that mirror how I see you, not necessarily how you see yourself. Reflect in that mirror how I see you. And how I see you is the most valuable, the most beautiful, the most successful, the most opportunistic, person with the most opportunities, the person with the most zeal, the person with the most abilities, the person with the most capabilities. And he says, listen, see that in you, because if you do see that in you, you will go into the world a different person. And so here's what this is the first thing I want to say to you, that God reflects the perfect image. Whether you like it or not, that's the image that God reflects, and each image is perfect in his eyes. And so go out in the world and say, listen, man, I am one of God's children. I have been made in the image of God, and I am somebody special because God created me in the image of God. There's a second concept I want to talk about in mirrors, about that light reflects. Remember, that light reflects a good and positive image. The second thing that light reflects the image of God. And so remember what my text says. What did that text say? And I wish you, sorry, I thought I'd give you verse 1, but I should have given you verse 2 as well. Ephesians 5 verse 1 and 2 says this: therefore be imitators of God. In other words, he says, be images of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. In other words, what Ephesians says, actually, let me read Colossians 1 verse 27 connects to that. And he says, to them God chose to make known how great among the Gentiles are the riches of the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. You go and read that text again. I'm going to expand on it a little bit because of time. But basically, those two texts says this: God reflects the most beautiful image of himself in you. And so the second thing Paul says, you go and be an imitator of God, and you go and reflect that image of God to people in the world. In other words, what you see there is God's beautiful image, right? That's God. And so what you do when you go into the world, when you go with your friends, when you go with your family, when you go wherever you go, in the shops, whatever, you go and reflect God. Reflect how God can be. Reflect how God can be possible to people. Reflect the love of God. Reflect the beauty of God. Reflect, greatest character of God. Reflect God in the most beautiful way, so that Colossians 1 verse 27 says, so that others can see God's glory and be drawn to God through you. Isn't that amazing? That's what Colossians 1 verse 27, that's what Ephesians 5 verse 1 says. Listen, you look at that mirror, you see image of God, you go out and you say, listen, I am going to reflect the image of God, because God's light shines on me and God's light shines through me. And so as God's light shines on me, all of his colors reflects to the world, and I want them to see the most beautiful image of God. And most of all, I want people to see God in me. Let me finish with this story. Remember this lady? Anybody know this lady? Most of you, some of you know them. Susan Boyle. 2009, I wish you watched that video on YouTube. 2009, she looked like that. She walked onto that stage of Britain Got Talent. She walked onto that stage, and you could see the camera shows the people. People shook their head. Simon Cole laughed. Everybody started laughing, and they said, what is this woman doing here? Look at her. She's so simple. She's so not as well dressed. She looks like she comes from somewhere we don't know. And we don't think she's going to make it for Britain's Got Talent. Until she opened her mouth to sing. She opened her mouth. That video shows it on YouTube. She opens her mouth, and the whole world was stunned. The whole world was stunned, because Susan Boyle got out and she sang, I dreamt a dream of time gone by. She dreamt a dream, and Susan Boyle goes and she reaches number 1 in the charts. She earns, at the moment, Susan Boyle has 33 million pounds in her bank account in 10 years. Now, I don't want to go on the 33 million and say to you guys, go on British Got Talent. And no, that's not what I want. I want you to get the picture. I want you to get the picture. Susan Boyle could have looked in that mirror and seen a simple person, a really sad person, but she did not. She came out and said, look, I am going to go on British Got Talent. I've got a good voice. I'm a valuable person. I am an image of God. And she goes out and she says, but I can share my voice. And she did. And people loved her for that. Now, here's the interesting thing about Susan Boyle. Now, I did a little research on her. Here's the interesting thing about Susan Boyle. Here's sometimes what happens when people get famous, right? It gets to their head. Sometimes it gets famous, they get to their head and they become all weird, and it all goes downhill from there. Not Susan Boyle. Susan Boyle, although she got 33 million pounds in the bank, she still prefers to live in the house that she grew up in, right? She buys a house for her sister. Susan Boyle, it says, she prefers her old friends. She stays in the council house and she still shops at her local supermarket. This is what she looks like now. This beautiful picture of a woman. But she still is simple. She still wants to be with the old friend, because that's what sometimes people get famous, and they don't want to hang out with their old friends anymore, because now they are, they are too local for them. They are too low for them. So I'm walking in bigger circles now, so I can't. But not Susan. If you read her story, if you research her story, she's there. She still lives in the place she grew up with. She still shops at the local supermarket. She still remains with her friends. And the fact is, she helps her friends out sometimes when they are struggling with life. Now that, for me, is seen in the sense of a person who looks at himself or herself and said, look, I am God's image, but also goes and in her own way reflects that image to other people in her life. God says, be imitators of God. Take on the image of God and say to God, listen, God, you've created me and I have the best possibility, the best potential that you've given me. And then you say to yourself, God, I'm going to take this image and I'm going to reflect you in the best possible way I can ever do it. And if you don't know how, God says, just ask me. Just come to me and ask me. Ask me 2 things. Ask God, please allow me to see the person in there that you want me to see in that mirror. The second thing, ask God, help me to reflect you in the best possible way ever. So that's what the Pathfinder is about, isn't it? Pathfinder law says, Pathfinder pledges to be a servant of God and a friend to man. May you continue to be that way, and may you shine for Jesus the best way possible, in the way he wants you to shine, in the way he's reflecting himself in your image. In Jesus' name, amen.
Happy Sabbath, Church. Our closing hymn is 515, The Lord is My Light.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. I'm just going to start that again. I've gone straight into the chorus.